This video is sponsored by you. Links to support the channel are in the description. Hello, Arknight's most hated YouTuber here. Once again having such a stupid accent that people think I am mocking Kiostin. Seriously, what the fuck? This video is the start of a series where I will review every single operator in the order they appear on the Game Press operator release dates page. These reviews assume you have the operator at optimal levels and that you have an optimal account, aka none of them will be reviewed on their own, but in relation to everyone else. We'll also be assuming that you are a normal player not doing any specific niche nights. Then we will also be putting them in a tier list, where S means broken, A means really good, B is good, C is mid, D is kinda bad, E is bad, and F is awful. In this part, we'll review the first 40 launch operators. Please understand I need to be brief, otherwise this will be longer than the Bible. If I get anything wrong, which is pretty common, say it in the comments and the correction will be included in the final video of the series compiling everything together. I also want to remind you that but they're useful in the early game is not a real argument but just cope. Literally everyone is useful in the early game. If everyone is super, then no one is. We start with caster Amiya. I'd make a tired donkey joke, but even I have standards. This donkey's claim to fame is skill tree, and as far as true damage skills go, this is pretty dog shit. While true damage is inherently good, this one deals way too little of it compared to better options. Not to mention the self-retreat. They tried to balance way too hard a mid skill. Compared to pretty much almost every other caster, she's very underwhelming. I'm sorry, Ila. D-tier. 12F is a 2-star unit, so you won't use him past chapter 1. Though, he has 50% physical dodge, meaning he can be useful to tank Patriot Spears if you don't have Beeswax. E-tier because at least he has a use. Sora doesn't have any such uses. She got completely and utterly power-crept by Skadi Alter, because in Spire, the buff they give doesn't stack, so you can't even use them together, which is also a very popular cope. If you don't have Skadi Alter, I guess she's okay, but support units are a thing even then. She does have a niche in Sleep Nights, but literally who gives a shit about that? F-tier. Texas is our first good operator. Her talent gives an extra 2 DP at the start. It's not much, but look at it like this. You can reward this talent into the first operator you deploy costs 2 DP less. Beside that, her S2 is also great. The range is big, her cock is huge, it gains a good amount of DP, it deals decent damage and stuns. Though there is way better options for her role, she's still a solid A tier. Exia is great too. There is way better physical damage dealers nowadays, but Exia still has her role to fulfill, and she fulfills it well. No, I will not make any Dujin joke. Shut up. You're 15. Go do your homework. Timing skill tree can be really finicky, but once you do, her damage still holds up to present day standards. She also synergizes extremely well with buffers and debuffers. Just slap Warfarin and Shamare and or Elysium and watch her melt everything in her range. A tier. Franka is complete ass. She's a duelist guard that can't duel. Remember when we called them duelist instead of dreadnought? Whatever. Her S1 is cookie cutter, and her skill 2 makes her as fragile as your mental health. I guess she has a niche with her talent though. She has a 20% chance to deal true damage. But if you want that, just use Calcit or Nearl Alter, since they have a 100% chance to deal true damage. Some of you will be coping by saying, but SUPAH just put her to the side of a blocker so she deals damage. Do you think we are still in year 1? You don't do that anymore. That quote-unquote strategy is more outdated than carrier pigeons. Nowadays, you just use a good operator instead. She has no case use at all. F tier. Liskarm has one claim to fame, and that is being an SP battery under very specific conditions. If you can get her to get hit often without dying, and you want to charge someone with a spammable skill in the 4 adjacent tiles, she's great. But it doesn't happen very often, or at all. But when it does, she's great. Still, I can't give her more than a C tier. When she can do her thing once every 100 stages when the prophecy is fulfilled, she's awesome, but otherwise underwhelming. Silence is f***ing awesome. I am tired of you people underestimating her. She's one of the most underrated operators in this goddamn game. She can honest to God heal the entire map. But Aya Alter can also do that. Shut your whore mouth. We don't use Aya Alter or Zwire Alter in this house. They represent everything wrong with this game. Anyway, her drone has insane uptime and great heals. In Annihilation, you can get away with using just one medic thanks to her. A tier. Gitano is awful, she's an AoE caster so she's dead on arrival, but outside of that she doesn't really do anything. Her one quote-unquote niche is being useful for Annihilation 3 in the early game if you have literally nobody else. She also has an RNG talent and stuns herself. F tier. Deepcolor is weird to review and rate. She is easily one of the best 4 stars. If you play low rarity. If you are a normal player, you don't get much out of her at all. Her summons can't refresh, her S2 is a meme, her module is pretty much required, and the summons themselves aren't anything special. D tier. Siege was murdered. You can watch this video for more details. I'll keep it brief here. She was never good. Even at launch, she was always just mid. But now Saga exists, and Siege is left with the tiniest of niches of being for lazy players that don't want to activate Saga manually. Myrrh also erased her initial niche of early game DPS completely, because now your early game DPS is f***ing Mudrock. E tier. Zima is really cool. We love Zima in this house. Unfortunately, as much as I adore her, not as much as Gummy, she's mid. She does have a niche though. She's the best Vanguard buff in the game, both increasing their stats and lowering their costs. In short, her main claim to fame is making Saga and Bagpipe better. Beside that, you're not getting much here besides some exquisite bear pussy. C tier. Myrrh is a cryptid. She's on par with Mothman. None of you remembered she's in the game, be honest. And it's for good reason. She doesn't do anything. Like Gitano, her one claim to fame is being good for Annihilation 3 if you just have no one else. F tier. Shirayuki is kinda mid. She's very useful again in Annihilation 3, but beside that, pretty much everyone is a better choice. She does have a minuscule niche with the giga range of S1, but she's E tier. Hello, SUPAH from the future here. Somehow, in the original recording, I forgot 5 operators between Shirayuki and Meteor. They are in the script, I just f***ing skipped them somehow. I don't know how that happens, but it did. Let's go through them. Hibiscus is just Hibiscus, she's intended to be ass. Even in integrated strategies, Ansel is a better choice, so she doesn't have a niche there either. F tier. Like, yeah, sorry, 3 stars due to their nature will find themselves in the bottom tiers. Lava is Gitano but worse. I don't think I need to go further. Like every other 3 star, she's intended to be bad. F tier. Beagle is not only outclassed by every better rarity defender, but by another 3 star too, F tier. Fang is actually better than most other 3 stars. You'll find her to be very useful in IS and pretty much nowhere else, honestly, but she is useful somewhere, so E tier. Kroos is much like Fang. She is really great in IS and to some extent usable in normal content too, but she is still a 3 star and RNG reliant with the talent. E tier. Okay, now let's go back to the original recording. Meteor is honestly not that bad. Her skill 2 is kind of ass, but her skill 1 makes up for it. At 3, it is a permanent defense debuff on an enemy if she keeps attacking them. Yes, there is better defense debuffs, but I really do think she can pull her own weight. Also, she's a canonical MILF. C tier. Estelle is a really rare unit. She's only available in recruitment and doesn't have any guaranteed tags. And for how rare she is, you don't get anything. I mean, she's better than Savage for sure, and is much like Deepcolor. If you play low rarity, she's really great, but otherwise just use anyone else. D tier. Ptilopsis is really good. She still holds up great, even in present day. The main thing here is a fat 30% buff to SP regeneration to everyone. You just place her down, and every skill on the map charges 30% faster. 35% faster if you have the module and they are in her range. Her actual healing is great too. Yes, skill 2's SP cost is outrageous for what it does. It's the launch operator curse of skills that don't do anything special but cost 500 SP. But you won't need to use it more than once usually, and it's a heli drop. S tier. Blue Poison still holds up decently. She's a godsend in the Ling event against the little pots and pans and body pillows thanks to her poison, but otherwise said poison is a complete non-factor. She deals very solid sustained damage, especially at M3, where her skill 1 activates every 2 attacks. Skill 2 is ass, don't use it. B tier. Dobermann is awful. All she does is buff 3 stars. That's her niche. Her niche is 3 star knights, but you can't use her there because she's not a 3 star. And why would you buff 3 stars in the first place? This is like the worst gimmick in the game. Right behind Insider, countering enemies with ranged weapons. F tier. Ifrit is amazing. Do you remember when people said Ifrit was situational back during year 1 or year 2? That was so bullshit in retrospect. I get it, you look at her wacky ass, goofy ass, silly ass range, and you think, oh, she only works when the stage accommodates for it. But that's not true. When she can only use one tile, she's amazing. When she can use her whole range, she just solved the entire stage for you. Her DPS is insane with skill 2, especially with the module making it activate every 2 milliseconds. And her skill 3 is one of the best resistance debuffs in the game. Her one real downside, quote-unquote, is that she costs a kidney's worth of DP, but Myrrh exists. Estelle. Hoshiguma has an interesting history. She was great at launch, as basically the only DPS defender before they too became guard archetypes. Then she became completely useless for a good 2 years, and now I'd say she's very solid. This is thanks to her first module. Don't even look at the second one, it's trash. Her first module gives her block 4. This gives her a unique niche that not even the Ling summons can fulfill. Give her skill 2 and a healer, and she just becomes an immortal wall. The thing is, you often don't need an immortal wall in this game. The best strategy is to just kill as efficiently as you can. Meteor. Lappland is either literally useless or literally mandatory. Her kit is bipolar, just like her. You did it again, Lowlight, you achieved Kino. Her thing is applying silence permanently on a big range and possibly to multiple targets. Issue being, pretty much everyone and their dog is immune to silence. But when they aren't, like in Stultifera Navis, she just solves the entire event for you. But it doesn't happen often at all. When she isn't solving the stage for you, she is barely doing anything. Sit here. Haze is so disappointing. In lore, she can create these poisonous mists, but her kit doesn't reflect that in any way. What the f were they cooking here? Still, she is not bad. Like Ifrit, she is a great resistance debuffer. Depending on the enemy, this can be a chunky cut to their stats, like with Patriot. Still very situational. Her skill 2 is also kinda finicky to use. Yes, it's very easy to not get her hit by anything if you aren't 5 years old, but better casters also happen to require less thinking. Sit here, there's just way better. Specter is an abyssal hunter, so I would love to put her in F tier, but I can't. 15 seconds of immortality just breaks the game. Not just that, she also deals great damage while she's at it, and has great self-sustain. And just to make sure you understood, she literally cannot die. And unlike her alter, she doesn't even want insane investment out of you to be good. She's a dogshit character but an outstanding operator. S tier. Projekt Red was murdered too. Texas Alter just does everything she does 100 million times better. But Texas Alter is limited. If you don't have her, she's still mid. Her damage isn't the best, and her stun is just okay. She was only used because at the time there really was no other option. D tier. Provence is bad. Tecton was right. Her talent is RNG. Her skill 1 is weird. That's the best way I can describe it, honestly. I don't really see any use case for it. Dealing more damage the lower the HP of the enemy is dumb on the face of it. It's reminiscent of old boss design, where they'd have a pseudo phase 2 at 50% HP. And her skill 2 has that stupid HP gate thing that some operators have. Given her HP gate isn't as bad as Andreana or Delphine, and her damage is good, but still it's an HP gate, making her inherently dependent on others. And nowadays there is so many better options, there is no way you don't have any of them. Schwartz, Potiomka, Fartooth, Chen Alter, Exia to some extent, and so on. E-tier. Shining is a meme. Her defense increase niche is kinda useless due to how the game calculates damage. Defense is just a simple subtraction. No matter how much defense she gives, a big enough hit can ignore it. Often just plain HPS is more reliable. Her skill tree cost is also completely outrageous at 120. Lastly, she is only really useful to let Ak buff some ranged units and for some AFK clears. E-tier. Nearl is very solid. She does nothing special, really. She's a healing defender, so she heals, and she does it well, but she is completely power crept by Saria. She's good, but her kit ends at itself. She's the most basic unit in the game, possibly. Scavenger is... She's basically the attack-oriented version of Courier. You will never need her past chapter 3 at most. E-tier. Cuora once held the title for having the highest defense in the game, before Simon from Gurren Lagann over here took it. Still, she's a great tank. I would have ranked her above Hoshiguma a couple years ago, but now I'm not so sure anymore. C-tier. Indra is just miserable. Brawlers, if they aren't Mountain or Chongyue, just get gimped by how the game works. Again, defense is calculated with a simple subtraction, which means it's better to do one big hit so the calculation is only applied once, instead of a bunch of small hits. Yes, her skill 2 circumvents this by making her damage into arts, which is calculated with percentages. But here's a great idea: at this point use an arts guard instead, or a caster. You don't need a unit where said skill has horrible uptime and way too high of an SP cost. She really just brings nothing to the table. You're better off using Melantha. She's also very annoying to get. She's only available in recruitment. F-tier. Firewatch is decent. There's way better, but she's decent. Her skill 1 is what everyone rages on about. It has insane uptime, good damage, great range, and invisibility. Thing is, invisibility isn't needed very often at all. The last time invisibility was really useful was like 3 years ago against the Emperor's Blade. Otherwise, it's just nice to have. You can let her sit there just dealing damage and you know she won't be harmed by anything. But there's a lot better. The comfort of invisibility doesn't outweigh just playing a little better so your sniper doesn't die in the first place. C-tier. Vulcan's case is a tragedy. She has to compete with Madrock and Penance, some of the best units in the game. She just has zero use case anymore. Also, both of her skills cost way too much for what they do, and she's really obnoxious to obtain. With Indra and Estelle, she's only available in recruitment. E-tier. Skyfire is also tragic. You can really tell Hypergriff banked on her becoming popular before launching the game. She has the popular VA, they made a figurine for her, and then she's ass. She's almost unusable. You wanna know something funny? Initially, her skill 2 was supposed to be her default attack, and even if it was, it would still be bad. You don't get anything out of it. She takes a coffee break between every attack, so her DPS isn't that much improved, and her stun is completely negligible. If it was infinite or her default attack, all you'd have is a really slow attack with passable damage and the worst stun in history. F-tier. Warfarin is amazing. Her buff on skill 2 is one of the best in the game, and the downside is a total non-factor. Pair it with Exia or Passenger, and they just become gods among men. And if that's not enough to pulverize everything in their range, slap Shamare or Saria skill 3 in there too. The only real downside is the random targeting you have to play around, often having to find ways so that the guy you want to buff is the only guy in her range. She's not S tier good, but she's really f***ing good. A tier. And that's all for this part. Max out your gummy. Bye. Hi, thank you for watching. This project will kill me, so thank you to all the supporters on screen right now. In particular, Noobpo, Lord Takeo, IQ is fake, come to Brazil, and Chromchan but JJF. That's all from me, see you next time in like a fucking month or something, I don't know.
After the other, over and over again, I was a new pendulum.